Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
Hey, we're back. I know you haven't seen a lot of us lately, but getting bogged down in our spring schedules here as we plow through the musical year of 1983. We're still in the early going of 83, and a monumental album came out in the first month of that year that would have a tremendous impact on the music charts for the next decade or so. We're going to talk about one particular, that album in general, that band in general, one particular song from that album. Also, one pop band from Down Under continues to rule the world at this point. Their song Saturating Radio. And their second album came out in 1983, although their first album was so successful, they had to wait to release album number two.
Yeah, it was recorded in 82.
Yeah, it didn't come out until nearly a year after it was recorded. That's Men at Work's second album, Cargo. We're going to specifically look at the second single from that record, which I think is the most enduring Men at Work song. Now, the song most people associate with Men at Work would probably be Down Under.
Yeah.
But I think most Men at Work fans, or most fans of the band, or most music fans with this much time to look back retrospectively would say Overkill, probably their greatest work.
Yeah, and I think Colin Hay probably thinks that it's the best song he ever wrote, too.
Yeah. So before we get to talking about all that, have you been watching the latest Star Wars iteration, Andor, on television, Cheryl?
No. I don't watch any Star Wars anything.
So that includes movies, the original. You were never a Star Wars fan?
I've seen the original movies,
okay.
And of course I love those, but I've never seen, I've seen the other ones, but I don't care about them. And I've never seen any of the shows. I've never seen The Mandalorian. I've never watched any TV or that has anything to do with Star Wars.
Okay, so you said you've seen all of the movies?
No, I've seen the original 3.
Yeah.
And then I've seen like the ones that came out after that in the, I don't know, what was that? The 90s?
So
or
the prequels.
Of those.
The
yeah,
prequels.
And they were just so bad that I was like, I don't ever need to watch those. And then I've never seen anything else.
Okay, well, those were probably the weakest efforts in the whole Star Wars franchise, I would think. I'm going to go back and reassess.
I think everyone would agree that that's true, yeah.
But a lot of great content came out later. Now, I'm not a big Star Wars geek or a sci-fi geek in general, but I got to say, the Andor series, and it's going to be complete after 2 seasons, is the greatest on-screen iteration of the Star Wars story, in my opinion. All the movies, all the other TV shows. It's just so different. It's a British production. It's got an international cast, mostly fairly unknown actors, although some big names show up in there. Forrest Whitaker has a memorable part. Andy Serkis, is that his name? Serkis, right?
I don't know.
British actor. He's kind of a cult favorite. He has a very memorable role. I jumped in midstream at some point, a few episodes in, didn't really grasp all of the characters or what their interrelationships were, but I could still appreciate the show for what it was. Just a brilliant production, incredible sets, great acting, gripping story, very intense, dark, very dark. The tone of this is so different from most of in particular the original Star Wars movies, which were just kind of light B-movie type
more campy,
fare.
yeah.
Yeah, this is very dark and edgy. I call it Star Wars for adults. It's adult Star Wars. And it's just so brilliantly done. But I haven't watched the final episodes of season 2 yet because I've got down to, I think, the last 2 episodes. I'm like, I need to go back to the beginning and rewatch because I just never got to grips with all the intricacies of this show. So I've been going back and rewatching season 1, and my son's jumped in. He just loves this show, and we've been watching it together. So I highly recommend you check out Andor. We watched The Mandalorian too, and when it was good, it was really good, but it was very inconsistent. It was up and down.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of based on the story that week or the script, and a couple of the actors weren't very good. But
I kind of like it when there's a show too that is only going to be 2 seasons. Usually those types of shows are obviously building up. Each episode is important and it builds up throughout the whole story. So
that's kind of more the British influence coming to bear on American television. I think it's more common in Britain to have limited series.
Yeah,
like Andor. I think the greatest television situation comedy of all time is Fawlty Towers, and there were like 13 episodes of that. There were hardly any. And it was done.
Johanna and I actually just started watching Stranger Things again last night from the first season. We've seen them all, But the fifth season is coming out, probably not until the fall, but we just finished watching all of Seinfeld. And so
Oh, gosh.
I'd watched that obviously when it was on, but she'd never seen it. And it's actually, I thought I was going to have a hard time watching it, honestly. I thought it was going to be kind of like watching The Office, the early Office episodes where it's just so cringe.
Is it that bad? The early episodes are that bad?
Oh, yeah. Well, because it's more based on the British Office. So Michael's character is just so hard to watch.
So he's more of jerky than, yeah.
Yes. And I mean, that show gets more endearing as it goes and you get to know the characters and they build that. Seinfeld, though, it's so funny. It's so hilarious. It is weird at the beginning. It starts in 1989, which I didn't even realize that. I never watched the first couple seasons. And so I didn't start watching it until like maybe 91. The first season, it was a really short season. Then they had like a year or so in between. But anyway, it's so hilarious, so much more rewatchable than I thought it was going to be. So then we started watching Stranger Things again last night. I think it's one of the best things that's ever been on television.
Oh, it's great.
And it's so great. But one of the things I forgot that's so amazing about it is the music.
Yes.
And the music they use in the show, the actual songs, but also the score. The score is so cool.
Well, just the whole way they recreated the vibe of that era was brilliant,
Yes.
I thought. It's not cliched. And so many movies that are set in the 80s rely on just one cliche after another.
Yeah.
And you don't get that with Stranger Things. I remember watching that and thinking, just yearning for those days when we were kids, when we had so much freedom that kids
Rode
don't
our
have.
bikes everywhere.
Oh, God,
and,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just leave in the middle of the night. Parents
Right.
didn't know where you were. They weren't tracking you on their phones.
I know.
But I love the way they use music in that show. And I'm just excited to watch the whole thing again.
You will appreciate Andor for that as well, because again, it has that early 80s vibe, particularly with the music.
Oh, it does?
So if you're a fan of like those dystopian late 70s, early 80s sci-fi kind of movies, this is right up your alley because it's got that edge. It's got that John Carpenter kind of music to it.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Okay,
now,
I'll check it out.
And we'll rewatch Stranger Things as a family before the new season comes out. That's what that's what we've been doing, preparing for the new Mission Impossible movie. Now I got to go to the opposite end of the spectrum here. Andor, obviously wonderful, one of the greatest television shows I've ever watched. We went back and for the second time rewatched all the Mission. We love the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, we do too. Yeah.
Watched them all to get ready for the newest one. Now, this is part 2 of the last one, which was Dead Reckoning, which I thought was the worst of the series.
Yeah.
And so I had high hopes that the part 2 would salvage the whole thing. Good God, was I wrong.
No.
It's terrible. It is so it is so corny, so ridiculous.
We've actually been looking forward to this, and we were even thinking of going to see it in the movie theater, which for us is a big deal because we never go to the movie theater ever. And so
we saw it at the theater on Sunday, and it's one of those theaters with the reclining chairs and the sound, like you get the vibrating floor. Which was really annoying early in the movie to me because the movie was already like, oh God, this is so dumb, and I'm just making fun of it the whole time. When it got to the latter part where you're getting the more intense action sequences, then having those effects was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Particularly as the big climactic scene is aboard a submarine under the Bering Sea, under the ice, that's like in danger of rolling off this cliff, and it keeps like rolling over. That effect was cool for that part. But God, the script is just so terrible on these final two. And this heavy-handed Christian message that they're hammering was strange to me.
Really?
Because,
with Tom Cruise?
Yes, that's odd. Because now I don't know a lot about Scientology, but what I do know is it's not. They don't believe in the
Christian.
No, they don't believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ. He was just a dude, which I thought was odd because he's the world's most famous Scientologist.
Yeah. That's really surprising.
But they're really driving home this Christian message in the movie. And, the heart of Jesus Christ's message is, treat everybody with love, treat your brother like you would yourself. And,
right.
Which I guess it's positive, but I don't know, it's just very heavy-handed the way they did it.
It seemed like it fits into that movie, though.
Yeah. And then you factor that in with just the corny script, the endless exposition where they're explaining the plot, which is just a
Oh,
clear sign that something's poorly written, where you got to have these long scenes where the characters just sit there and talk about what they're doing and what they're going to do next.
are they trying to tie in all the older movies too? Like, are they trying to make
Yes,
it
there's
cohesive?
all
Which
these
is
flashbacks,
silly.
and it's
Yeah.
a huge ego trip for Tom
Oh
Cruise.
God. I
He's
just
got
want to see him run. That's all I want to
well,
see. I just want to see Tom run.
just like you're guaranteed to see Christopher Walken dance in everything he's in, Tom Cruise will sprint in
Yes.
everything he's in with that Forrest Gump thing that he does.
Tom, run.
And he has got not one but two fight scenes in his tighty whities.
Oh no.
Now, I will give the guy credit that at
Yeah,
his age, he's
his
like,
age.
what, 62, 63 years
Yeah,
old, that
yeah.
he could pull this off. But it is a big ego trip for him.
That's disappointing.
And I'm a huge Cruise fan. I know he gets a lot of flack from a lot of people. I think he's
his
one of
movies.
those underappreciated actors in the history of Hollywood.
Yeah.
But this is very disappointing the way this whole franchise came to an end. And it, at least the first part of the movie had the amazing action sequences to redeem it.
Yes.
The train scene and the jump with the bike. This one, the biggest action scene is a biplane chase. It's like, what are we doing?
It's a little old school.
Yeah, we paying tribute to the aerial action movies of the 20s here.
The 20s, yeah.
So yeah, that's
well, maybe we're gonna have to just hold off and not really. I mean, that is disappointing because we've been waiting for this too.
Yes, yeah. But it's amazing to me how quickly it drops off from Fallout, which was many people's favorite. It's not my favorite, but it's probably my second favorite. I'm partial to the 3. The one with the Philip Seymour Hoffman villain, that just grabs you by the neck right from the opening seconds. Yeah, I love the intensity of that.
Intense one.
That's not the best reviewed movie, but it's my favorite. And then Fallout, probably I like slightly better than Rogue Nation. But then big drop off for the final 2, which is just too bad. And I went back and I looked at Metacritic, and it's the second best reviewed of the movie series. Dead Reckoning.
Newest one is?
Dead Reckoning is.
The one that just came out?
No.
The one before.
One before, which I thought was pretty corny.
Yeah, because I thought that one was corny. Like, I definitely felt like that was the least interesting of all of the installments. Yeah. And it also felt like, okay, Tom is getting older because, I mean, he's still doing all these amazing things that are mind-blowing for anyone. But, compared to the earlier stunts, it was like so much more exciting. But I guess we'll just have to wait and not bother seeing it in the theater.
So big thumbs up to Andor, thumbs down to Mission Impossible. I did want to talk about Andor because it is a throwback to the era we're in now.
Okay,
as far as
I didn't know that. That makes it more interesting to me too.
Yes. But this was a difficult episode for Cheryl and I to prepare for. And I've been kind of ruining this day since we began this enterprise because I knew we'd have to cross this bridge eventually. And that is the emergence of glam metal, which many people call hair metal, which neither Cheryl nor I are particular fans of. I think it's safe to say in general.
In general, but I have to say I've actually kind of enjoyed this.
Okay, all right.
Enjoyed this more than I thought I would.
You may be bringing more to the party here than I. I don't want to. So our whole.
You're a party pooper. Is that what you're saying?
well, the whole approach to our playlist, and if you're unfamiliar with what we're doing here, we're working our way through our musical pasts and building a playlist that would be appropriate for a group gathering of our peers. We started in 1972. And we're adding more music as we go along through the years. We'll peak in our high school years. We're just about there. For me right now, we're still in 8th grade here in early in the 1983 calendar year when Pyromania by Def Leppard comes out. Now, this is a landmark album for the genre that would later become known as glam metal. That term didn't exist at this point. Glam rock certainly was a touchstone, a major one for this band. And that's the music of the early to mid 70s, primarily English groups. The totemic figures in that scene would be Mark Bolan, T-Rex, and David Bowie with his Spiders from Mars band during the early part of the 70s. Yeah, the Ziggy Stardust era. That's glam rock. This is glam metal, which is, to put it in its simplest terms, it's the crunch, the heaviness of metal with pop music sweetening.
Yeah.
Which can be, synthesizer accents or more pop hooks, particularly as far as the choruses. A lot of anthemic choruses.
Yeah, chanting, sing along type. Mm-hmm.
There can be intricate musicality to it, but generally that's confined to the guitar solos. And most of the glam metal bands will have a lead guitar player that can shred on the solos. But really, it's almost more about a look than a sound. The core glam metal bands, the scene was centered around Los Angeles' Sunset Strip. And in LA, glam rock never really died. I mean, it just kind of petered along after the mid 70s and was still part of the scene there all along, but very underground at this point. Certainly nothing that was popular, nationwide. And then it just kind of sparked up again in the early 80s. Two bands that aren't generally considered glam metal bands, but certainly very influential on that scene as it became popular in the 80s would be a couple of American bands, Van Halen and Kiss. Kiss for the theatrics and the makeup and the whole stage appearance. And Van Halen, particularly David Lee Roth with his stage attire, is kind of setting the tone. But the pop aspects of their heavy sound were very influential on what would become glam metal. But this
I would say Aerosmith too.
Yes. Yeah, the whole androgynous look, that went back a long ways. I mean, the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger was flirting with that in the late 60s, early 70s. So that was influential.
New York Dolls.
Yeah, New York Dolls, more of a punk edge to their sound, but certainly their look was influential. But as far as the sound of the music is concerned, Pyromania really sets the template for what was to come. I think it's a landmark album in that respect. Now, if you talk to the guys in Def Leppard, they would bristle at being lumped in with glam metal. There was nothing very glam about their appearance. They were more down to earth, Northern England, working class dudes. They didn't cop a lot of those style tips from the LA bands and the makeup and the poodle hair and, well, maybe the hair a little bit, but not to that extent. Not to that extent.
No, not really. The only reason why I think they had anything to do with like a look was because they were good looking guys. And so they had sex appeal, so there was something there that came through like on MTV and that.
You think Joe Elliott's a good looking guy, do you?
Yeah.
Really? All right.
He's like, to me, he's kind of a little bit like Simon Le Bon with a mullet.
Wow. Okay. All right. One thing you got to say about, I mean, I in general, not a fan of Def Leppard, although the song we're talking about today, brilliant song, great song. I mean, just leagues ahead of anything else they did, in my opinion. But the main thing for me is him. I mean, I don't care for his vocals. I just don't like the sound of his voice, but they are likable. They're very likable. They're very down to earth, funny guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a bunch of dummies. They're just, they're charming.
Yeah.
And you got to appreciate that. It's part of their appeal.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that comes across with MTV because they had a big presence on MTV. I mean, this album was so huge.
Massive.
It was massive. It was one of the few hard rock albums that also translated over to a pop audience.
Right.
And so it was just kind of universally accessible in that way. And whenever you get a band like that or an album like that that crosses over the barriers and like really becomes, just huge on so many levels, then it oftentimes will kind of spark a movement too. And that's kind of what happened here. Although when you say that, you're talking about the glam part of it, I don't see Def Leppard as being part of that because they don't have the look. It's more Motley Crue. It's more, the Sunset Strip bands that really were doing the big hair and the makeup and the spandex. Joe Elliott says that he just picked up this Union Jack muscle t-shirt, in some dime store somewhere, and that's what he wore. They started selling them at the concerts with their name on them, and I'm sure you knew someone that had one of those shirts.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. So I take myself back to that era, and Pyromania really just nails me back down to 8th grade. I could picture myself in class and just the buzz that this album created at that time. But I kind of missed the boat on Photograph somehow. And I think that's because we didn't have MTV in our house until toward the end of 1983. So the song that really introduced Def Leppard to me was Rock of Ages, not Photograph, which grabs you right away with that goofy, gibberish opening, that kind of fake. It's like fake German opening. But that song isn't nearly as
catchy.
No, it just pales in comparison to Photograph. So I didn't really come around to Photograph till later on. So I didn't have this great impression of Def Leppard from the outset. Now, had we had MTV and had I been exposed more to the song Photograph when that album came out, I might have been more receptive to it. But at the time, I was like, no, this ain't for me.
I remember Bringing on the Heartbreak.
I don't remember hearing that till later. But Cheryl's referencing the song from their previous album, which really signposted the way for Pyromania. It just seemed tailor-made for American radio, this big power ballad, which was on their previous album, High and Dry. Both albums produced by Robert John Lang, Mutt Lang. Mm-hmm. And I think right now he's leading the producers tally on our playlist, probably. This is 3-4 songs that he's had a hand in, I think, now on our playlist.
Yeah, Foreigner.
AC/DC.
AC/DC, that's right. Yep.
So he produced Back in Black. He produced Foreigners 4. Mm-hmm. He produced High and Dry, which wasn't a smash hit in America, but I think radio programmers dug Bringing on the Heartbreak. It was a latter single off that record, so that record was kind of tailing out at that time, but it primed the pump, let's say. They were ready when the new album came out, and it was a big, big step toward massive production.
Well, and Bringing on the Heartbreak was one of the few early MTV songs, because it was during that time where they didn't have a lot of stuff to play. And so they started playing it, and that's what sparked popularity and then started getting radio play from that in America.
That's probably my second favorite Def Leppard song after Photograph.
I really like that song. Yeah.
But this album, the production really takes center stage. And the more you read about it, it's hard to believe it's the same guy that produced Back in Black. Because Back in Black is such a great, natural sounding album. You compare the drum sounds on Back in Black, which are immaculate.
I long for the drum sounds of Back in Black on this album. It's the one thing that just kills me about this album.
Yes. And then, Pyromania, it's just, now you're full into the digital mush, the snare and sounds of this era, which is unfortunate.
It's a full-on drum machine. I mean, it's not to the point of Jethro Tull Under Wraps, which came out in 1984 and is literally just the tiniest drum machine you've ever heard, and it killed that album. But it is a drum machine, and it doesn't have life. It was a sound that was used a lot, but it was used in synth pop. It was used with bands like Human League, and who didn't have a drum or guitar, any acoustic-based instruments, so it makes sense in that setting. But when you pair it with actual guitars, bass, drum, real players, it just stands out so much, and it hurts me.
The album is so overproduced, as almost every note is programmed in rather than played. So it is a pretty impressive achievement when you listen to the record. So I want to get back to Rock of Ages too, because I don't recall noticing this until I was listening on headphones last night, how prominent the synthesizer is in that song.
I know, it's funny because there are synths in this album. In fact, the first song, Rock Rock Till You Drop, starts out with synths at the beginning of that too, which that's not that unusual for, but you had Rainbow in the Dark, Ronnie James Dio, that has massive synths in it. There's synthesizers in heavy metal type music.
But you still think it must have caught a lot of, the harder core metal fans off guard when they got this record, and that's the first sounds you hear building up. And then all of a sudden there's this dramatic shift, and it's just a kind of AC/DC light after that.
Yeah. But light is definitely the word because of the drums.
Right. Yeah.
It just really takes away that pounding sound that is what makes Back in Black so great. Yeah. One of the things that makes it so great.
Rick Allen, he don't swing too much on that kit.
Which is why Mutt did this, because he felt like Rick could not keep time. He wanted it perfect. And he figured the way to do that was to use a drum machine, because it wasn't going to happen with Rick. Which, most drummers have a little bit of a swing in there, something that they do that it will keep you from being as perfect as a drum machine.
Well, that's the secret sauce of AC/DC. Their boogie rhythm is impeccable.
Yeah. So it does really change the dynamic. This album could have been just like, it could have really taken so much away from it. The painstaking, meticulous process, of recording it. But for some reason, it still works. And I guess it must just be because the songs are good enough.
Yeah, I'll circle back to the last, there might have been a single after it, but Foolin', which came out after, so Photograph, then Rock of Ages, then Foolin'.
Mm-hmm.
Foolin' didn't do a whole lot for me at the time, but that's one you got to listen to that on headphones. It's a massive production on that, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And I think Joe's vocals are really good on that. Actually, that's one where I think his vocals are a notch up.
But as far as songs are concerned, Photograph is an unassailable, great, titanic pop song. It's just so perfectly constructed. Joe's vocals, which ordinarily I'm not keen on, they just work on this song. The chord changes are great. It just grabs you in early on with that kind of backward snare sound on the introduction. The production, everything comes together on this. And it's one of the great hard rock pop songs of all time, maybe the greatest.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, which Van Halen really perfected, was the backup vocals,
yes.
the really melodic sounding that just really elevates the chorus into that super sing-alongable.
Yeah. A lot of the record sounds like it's a combination of Van Halen and AC/DC for me.
Yeah, which is a great combination, really.
Yeah.
Honestly, my only complaint is the drum sound. I think most of the album is really good. There's no bad song on it. Although I did go back and listen to Back in Black again. That's such a great album.
Yes,
it really is. And it doesn't compare to that. And a lot of that too is Brian Johnson's vocals and just the power, the growl, which that's what brings more of that. I mean, AC/DC isn't metal, but the hard rock sound, where Def Leppard is definitely, tipping more toward pop. I think that bringing in Phil Collins, so he was brought in late in the recording.
Yeah, basically to do the solos.
And the solos are really cool on this album, and that brings this album up a level. But he came from a band called Girl that was more of a glam rock band. I mean, he was only doing the solos on this album, but maybe he kind of brought a little bit more of that pop mentality into it too.
And his look was far from glam, with the short cropped hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looked just like a normal guy.
These guys weren't into the hard drugs and the coke like the LA glam bands. They were beer swilling, Northern England, down to earth dudes.
Yeah, except for the one guitarist that got kicked out, and then the other one who ended up.
Yeah, well, their problems were with alcohol, not coke. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
The troubles would come later on for Def Leppard after this massive album. They went right back to work on the next one, and it took years to complete that, partially because of the accident involving their drummer. I watched a documentary on YouTube that came out during the era. It was just kind of shocking to see how young these guys were when they first came out. They were really young.
Yeah, in fact, I think Rick Allen was 15 when he joined the band.
He wasn't even 21 when he had the accident, was he? I mean...
Yeah, he lost was it his right arm or his left arm? I forget now. I think it was his left arm, because when you watch him play now, he still is hitting the hi-hats. Yeah, it's his left arm. So you're using your right arm to hit the hi-hats, and normally you're just using your left to hit the snare, but they set up a kit so he could use his feet for the snare hits. And that whole thing too, really, it just says a lot about them, because they stuck by their friend, that has been in the band since the beginning.
Who's not some great musician to begin with.
He was replaced by a drum machine on Pyromania, but instead of just giving up on him, they stuck with him, and he came back, and they had started touring again, and they thought they were going to have to bring in another drummer, but they found that he was actually able to do it with this retrofitted drum kit that worked for him. I mean, I guess maybe in some ways, because the drums are very simple, especially on Pyromania, then it's like, it wasn't too hard to continue with that sound and that, that style. I think that just says a lot about them as people. They kept him in the band and he's been with them all along and still is. And I think it's really cool.
Well, and this is the era when a lot of drum patterns were pretty simple. I mean, you listen to a lot of the hits from this era. It's very simple, floor on the floor beats, not too far removed from disco. And, that was kind of au courant. A lot of bands that might have had more complex rhythms really simplified their sound to fit into the styles of this era. Police were an exception, with Stuart Copeland.
Well, I think also you're getting the guitars are standing out so much. Like it's all about the guitar. It's all about the guitar solos. It's all about the chugga 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 chugga, guitars. And a lot of them, you've got the twin guitar sound like Def Leppard did, kind of taking like from Thin Lizzy.
Yep. And their final album comes out in '83.
And their final album is hard rock.
It's hard. Yeah, it's heavy metal. Yeah.
One of the heaviest albums they've had. With this type of music, the focus is on the guitar and the vocals. The drums kind of take a backseat. Even Tommy Lee, who's a very flashy drummer on Shout at the Devil, he's not super flashy on that album. And you mentioned, because, I listened to a lot of different stuff for this episode, and you mentioned the vocals were what you were kind of feeling like a lot of these bands you just couldn't get on board with the vocals.
I'll take Joe Elliott over Vince Neil.
See, I don't mind Vince Neil. Oh. I think he's okay, and I like the Shout at the Devil album. I think Looks to Kill was the better single. But once again, you have that chanty shout. And that was one of the things that, Photograph to me, what I think of is dances, junior high dances.
Yeah.
And everyone is singing this song. And a lot of these songs, you have that group sing-along mentality to them.
And that harkens back to the glam rock era.
Yeah, for sure. And, one of the other bands that was huge at this time and albums was Quiet Riot Mental Health. And, what was their massive hit was a Slade cover.
Yep. Little did we know at the time.
Yeah, we had no idea.
Because Slade was very popular in England, but never had the slightest bit of impact on the U.S. charts.
No. And so when they did Come On Feel the Noise, which they did not want to do, they were like totally against it. And they actually went into the studio and were just kind of like, okay, fine, we'll just play it once. That was the first take, what's on the album. It was like almost the first time they'd even ever played that song because they were so against it, but the record label really wanted them to do it. And it just becomes this huge, massive hit. And that's about as glam rock as you can get with Slade. That's a great sing-along song too. And I remember that being at junior high dances and everybody's singing along to it. So at the time, I actually never owned Pyromania.
Me neither. I do now.
I do now. I knew lots of people that did. It was kind of like Thriller.
Right.
I didn't own Thriller either. So it was kind of fun for me to go back and listen to it now and actually really listen to it and appreciate it. Because at the time, it was just a very overplayed. I couldn't really get that into it. But I do think it's a great album.
It's good. I would hesitate to say great just because of the shortcomings for me, but Photograph is deathless. That is just a incredible song. And then, Quiet Riot, that's probably the number 2 glam metal song of 1983. That's a huge hit in the United States. And the album is actually the first metal album to reach the top of the Billboard 200 list.
Yeah, it went to number 1.
So I've always liked Quiet Riot's cover of Come On Feel the Noise. Bang Your Head, Mental Health Will Drive You Mad, the next single. That was fun, too.
I like that one.
The record kind of caught me off guard, kind of like Ozzy's first record. I was surprised at how poppy it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know which one surprised me that I really liked was Twisted Sister, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll.
Yes, I got to agree with you there. And I will say, again, a superior vocalist. I like Dee Snider's voice a lot better than Vince Neil and Joe Elliott. Kevin DuBro's got a powerful instrument. He is very strong in the upper register, the Quiet Riot singer. But Dee Snider's kind of got that lower growl in his voice that I like.
It's a little Alice Cooper-ish. Yeah, I really like his vocals too. And I feel like that album is less metal to me. It has rock and roll in the title. You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. To me, it's more of a hard rock album. It has the crunchy guitars. It has the really solid vocals, but it just feels like it's not quite as hard and heavy as a lot of the other stuff that would be considered heavy metal at that time. But I was surprised because I'd never listened to Stay Hungry. Of course, I know the singles. This is the album that came out before that. Stay Hungry came out in 84.
Right.
But I was surprised. It was a good album all the way through.
Yeah, I enjoyed that record. I didn't listen to it start to finish, but I listened to a big chunk of it. And the biggest thing that jumped out for me was one particular track, and I'm going to look that up here, but clearly Beastie Boys were listening, and I think they kind of, this first track on side 2, We're Gonna Make It, that is the same riff as Fight for Your Right for Party. Yeah, but
it's a lot of songs have that riff. That is such a basic rock riff. I don't like when you said that to me, I was like, it's probably the same exact notes. It's probably the same exact rhythm, but it's still, it has such a different feel to it. I didn't even notice it as being that derivative.
No, I noticed that right away. I'm like, I know this riff. What is this from? And I had to rack my brain for a while before I came up with it, but it is totally the same riff.
The other album that I actually thought was quite good was Kiss, Lick It Up.
Yes. Now, this is funny because, so like I said, we got MTV toward the end of 83. Now, it's in September of that year that they had the big to-do about Kiss coming on without their makeup for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was a super hype thing. And I remember I watched it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then they debuted the video for Lick It Up. And I remember watching that video and it's such a stupid video. And these guys are ugly and look ridiculous. Especially Gene Simmons.
Like,
this
just
guy.
Put the makeup back on, guys. Come on.
Gene Simmons is just, it's an example of the power of rock and roll, that this big, ugly gorilla has been laid 1 billion times and, marries models and stuff. It's just, God, he's so ridiculous. But that song, so it was great to go back and listen to that record without the visuals, just, and Lick It Up it's a very good, it's a very catchy song.
Catchy. I'm not kidding. That song gets stuck in my head more than any other song I've heard in the last 2 weeks. I just find myself singing it. I'm like, oh my God, why am I singing Lick It Up? I can't get it out of my head.
But am I not right? I mean, originally you're hearing that lyric, lick it up, while you're watching these gross guys.
And thinking like Gene Simmons' tongue and like, oh no, I don't want that visual with this song.
But all credit to Kiss, because this album packs a wallop too.
It's a good album. Yes. I listened to the whole album all the way through a few times, and I thought it was good. It's definitely heavier.
Yeah, it's the Vinnie Vincent influence.
Mm-hmm.
They got a much better guitarist in there.
It rocks hard. I like it. Yeah, I think it's good.
So Dokken, Breaking the Chains, the re-release. So they originally released this album a couple of years previously in Europe.
Yeah.
But a re-released version comes out in the USA, remixed, often re-recorded. Again, Don Dokken's vocals just don't do it for me. I just Breaking the Chains, the song, that struck a tone with a lot of people. A lot of people love that song. And that's considered a glam metal classic. Again, it's just kind of generic. Doesn't really do a lot for me.
I kind of liked it. It has a much lighter feel to it, though. It's way more melodic hard rock than metal to me. I was surprised. It had some kind of slower stuff, melodic stuff. His voice isn't great, but it didn't bother me. I actually thought it was pretty good.
I guess what it comes down to for me is if I want to listen to metal, I want to listen to metal. You
want like Bruce Dickinson or something more heavy and hard and in your face.
Yeah, like Neon Nights. I mean, something with a strong vocal, a fast pace that delivers a punch,
Yeah.
I don't want to watch these guys dressing like girls and preening around, pretty boys and soft stuff. I never understood why this was so popular.
Well, what surprised me is that so many of these are not hard and heavy. So many of this stuff is like Hanoi Rocks.
Well, I want to talk about that in a minute, but let's go back to Motley Crue.
Yeah.
So I don't like Vince Neil's voice. I don't like Motley Crue in general for the most part. But the one song that I think stands out on that Shout at the Devil album is Red Hot. I mean, that's just straight up. That's a straight up metal song, and it kicks ass.
I agree.
I like it a lot.
That's one of the best songs on there.
But the rest of the record just doesn't. And their cover of Helter Skelter, ugh.
Yeah. That was a misfire. Yeah. No, I agree. Motley Crue, I feel like that album, it had shock value to it because, the pentagram and devil, just using that at all in the title. And there's some of these metal bands come out like Venom. the beginnings of black metal. And that's the other thing that I think is kind of interesting, because a lot of these bands that now are becoming popular, they're singing more, especially like the Twisted Sister. They're singing like love songs. They're singing about being a good boyfriend. They're not coming out with this, Ronnie James Dio devil horns kind of thing.
I was doing the devil horns. I didn't realize it there. I wanted to circle back to Def Leppard. What you mentioned with Venom. I mean, a lot of these, Venom were an English band, but a lot of metal bands emerged from continental Europe, and English is a second language.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Hanoi Rocks in a minute, but when I listen to Def Leppard music, it sounds like they're not native English speakers to me.
Yeah, like
it
they
sounds
have
like
a Danish accent
right.
or something.
It sounds like somebody singing in another language. Just because the lyrics are kind of dumb and just the way they deliver them, with the exception of Photograph, which I think is a good lyric.
Well, actually, speaking of lyrics, I really never knew what he was saying in that part.
Look what you've done to this rock and roll clown.
Yes, look what you've done to this rock and roll clown. Like, I never knew what he was saying in that part. And I love the way it sounds, but it's like, what does that even mean? A rock and roll clown? It is kind of silly. I think the lyrics that actually kind of made me chuckle a little bit when I was paying more attention to the lyrics and stuff and thinking, they were working so hard for like a year on this album, and they couldn't have come up with a better lyric than that. It seems like they could have done a little bit better.
Oh, I like the lyric on Photograph. It's, simple and vague enough. I didn't go back and watch the video. Does the video have Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah, it has Marilyn Monroe.
Okay. So everybody thought it was about Marilyn Monroe, or he's in love with this picture of Marilyn Monroe. Yeah. They say that's not I believe them when they say that's not the case. It's just about fantasy, about something that's kind of just out of reach, and you lust for it, but you can't touch it.
Yeah, I think they just use the image of Marilyn Monroe because it's something that would draw people in, and it wasn't really supposed to be taken literally. No, it's just that rock and roll clown line.
Let's talk about Hanoi Rocks, because this is a band that a lot of people aren't too familiar with, but they were very influential on these LA bands. They toured America, and all these guys, just about everybody who was in a glam metal band or an aspiring band was trying to get to see this show. I mean, they had an impact. Now, it's like the opposite of Def Leppard, where Def Leppard didn't have the visual image that most people associate with glam rock, but musically, they set the template. It's the opposite with Hanoi Rocks. Musically, there's not a whole lot that's glam rock about their music. It's
glam rock?
Glam metal about their music.
Because there is a lot of glam rock.
Yes, definitely a lot of glam rock. A lot, there's a whole melange of stuff going on in their music, and a lot of there's a lot of humor in it too, which isn't necessarily the case with a lot of glam metal. I mean, it's humor for different kinds of humor, I guess. Irony, there's irony. Americans don't do irony so hot. But visually, they were hugely influential on the LA scene.
Yeah.
Michael Monroe, their lead singer, with this humongous blonde hairdo that's just kind of sleazy, trashy look of the rest of the guys in the band. But their music, it's different. It's a lot different from what would be considered glam metal. I mean, there's a lot of influences in there. It's way more punky.
Way more punky, poppy, glam.
Yeah.
They wanted to be like the New York Dolls, they were going from that image.
New York Dolls, an American group that never sold a lot of records, but were very influential on not only glam rock, but punk, American punk as well, out of New York. But Hanoi Rocks, I got introduced to them fairly early on, because when I was a freshman in high school, we had an exchange student who was a rock and roll musician in Finland. His name was Veli-Matti Kallio. He went by Veti, and he'd already recorded before he lived with us. And he was a huge fan of these guys, because this is the closest Finland has ever come to having an internationally successful rock and roll or pop band as these guys. Now, they never broke big in America, but they certainly got noticed by a lot of musicians. But back to Mystery City came out in 1983, and he had that. He introduced me to it. I still have the vinyl copy of that, which is worth some bucks now. And if you find their stuff on CD, it's valuable too, by the way. It's a fun listen. There's one song in particular that I would consider playlist worthy, and that's Malibu Beach Nightmare, but it is certainly not glam metal by any stretch of the imagination. It's kind of like
it doesn't have the metal.
It's closer to the Bay City Rollers than anything else. In fact, it pays tribute to them with the drum beat, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great, but it definitely does not fit into that category.
No.
But they had the look. They were part of that whole scene on the Sunset Strip. And was it the drummer that was killed?
Right. That's what most American metal fans would know about this group is the accident that Vince Neil got in 84, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Drunk driving accident. He, the drummer for Hanoi Rocks, who stage name was Razzle, was killed in that accident. And that kind of ended the band. So they were kind of on the verge of potentially breaking America. So it's kind of sad that this happened. And Vince Neil kind of skated on the deal. Maybe another reason I'm not a fan of his. But
yeah.
But that's what most people know about Hanoi Rocks. But it's well worth checking out their music because it's interesting. It's fun.
It is. Yeah, I did enjoy that.
Although not necessarily glam metal. Certainly a huge influence on the scene. What else did you listen to from 1983 in this vein?
Let's see. Europe, their first album.
Oh, okay.
Very amateurish vocals, actually, and the sound was lacking. And that's one of the other things, too. We talked about this with Ozzy's, first couple solo albums, that some of these bands, the sound quality is just not good.
God, you ever listen to Motley Crue's first record?
No, I didn't listen to that. And because a lot of the bands coming out in 1983, it was their first album, like Pantera, which they've like completely disowned that album, I guess, and stuff like that. So some of it is sound quality, and some of it it's just amateurish, like they're just starting out.
But they're young. They're still young. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what else did I listen to? Well, I listened to Dio Holy Diver, which is epic. Great album. Love the singles from that one. Same with Iron Maiden.
Now, these are just metal albums.
That's metal. Okay, we're talking. You want glam metal?
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if any of this is glam metal. Crocus? Did you listen to Crocus?
No, I did not listen to Crocus.
Okay, that's glam because they're more in the vein of like Sweet, like Ballroom Blitz style. I mean, that's what I was getting from that album. And a couple ballads, it wasn't bad. I actually thought it was pretty good.
We should mention John Bon Jovi. So their first hit record was Runaway. And I remember hearing that and liking it on the radio when it came out. But it came out a little later on. It was more of an 84 song.
Mm-hmm.
But it was actually released to radio in New York, the New York area, in 83. And he'd recorded that. So, John Bon Jovi, the band name and his last name, Bonjovi, it's a derivation of his actual last name, which is Italian, Bon Jovi. And his cousin Tony ran the Power Station studio in New York. So that's kind of that was the entry for John to get in the music business. I think if you're a hardcore Bon Jovi fan, you probably know the story by now about the first recording that his voice is on. You don't know, Cheryl?
No.
Oh God. It's the Star Wars Christmas album, R2-D2, We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
He sings on that?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Which was recorded at his cousin's studio. That was his break in the music business.
I love it.
But he got a chance to use the studio and record this song, and he used session musicians. It got released to radio in New York in 83, and it was a hit. And he's like, oh, shit, I got to get a band together and get out on the road.
I love Runaway. I think that's a great song.
Yeah.
But, once again, it's very keyboard heavy.
Yep.
And it has the punch of the guitars and the drums, but it has a lot of pop sensibility to it. It's not as hard. And they would be lumped in with the glam metal too.
Yeah. Well, I'd say, Def Leppard, again, whether you want to call them glam metal or not, maybe not their visual image, certainly their sound was the biggest. But Bon Jovi was the biggest American band of this genre.
Yeah, I mean, Slippery When Wet was just massive. Yeah. And that's later. See, it really starts to gain more ground, I think, once you get into 85, 86, 87.
Yeah. 83 is the breakthrough year, and then and then it just builds from there. And I know there's a couple of songs in 84 that will certainly rival the playlist that in a glam metal vein as well. But 83 is kind of when the first shots were fired.
Yeah.
And certainly in January with Pyromania coming out, that's a loud shot right there.
That was a shot heard around the world.
Yeah, you got that right. So there will be more talk about glam metal down the road, but I think the class of 1983, certainly head of that class is Def Leppard's Photograph. And then right after that, Quiet Riot with Come On, Feel the Noise. What would you say is your favorite glam metal or glam metal adjacent song of this year?
Oh, I think Photograph. It's just such a great sing along. The other thing I really love about it, and the other songs have this too, but this one does it so well, is how it has the breaks, especially I want to touch you. I mean, everyone is going to sing that when it happens. And
well, you got to master Mutt Lange. I mean, it's just incredible record maker. And I think it's pretty safe to say the greatest rock producer of them all, certainly based on album sales.
Well, just based on Foreigner 4, Back in Black, and this album, yeah. And then Hysteria. Hysteria was even more massive.
Oh, God.
It had like 7 singles that made it into the top 10.
We're going to have to confront that album eventually, but it's years down the road yet. I don't want to talk about that right now.
I know, but I'm just saying as far as being in Mutt Lange's arsenal.
Inescapable during freshman year of college.
Yeah. And that one was inescapable, and I actually wanted to escape it.
Yes.
This one, Pyromania was inescapable, but I didn't mind having it be part of my world. But I do think that Photograph has so many hooks, so catchy. It's got a great guitar solo. It has the stops. It's got the build up. It's just an all around great song.
I guess that's the reason it eluded me back then, is it probably wasn't getting played a lot on the pop radio station I was listening to. I wasn't listening to KISW yet, so I wasn't hearing a lot of the harder rock stuff. And, MTV came to our house a little late for that video to be played endlessly. So it took me a while to pick up on Photograph. But when I did, man, that's tip of the cap to you folks, Def Leppard. That's a brilliant song, certainly worthy of preservation on our playlist.
Yep, agreed.
So we want to take a turn back toward the new wave. And, Men at Work, we've already put them on our playlist. This will be their second appearance, and they're just dominating the world at this point. They are selling truckloads of records in every corner of the globe right now, and they're getting played on pop radio in the United States. They're getting played on rock radio in the United States. You cannot escape them, and the hits just keep on coming with their second album, Cargo, in 1983.
Which is a great album,
yes,
by the way.
It is.
And I think Business as Usual was a really good album too. But I think they really stepped it up, as far as the songwriting, and it's a more mature sounding album. Although you wouldn't have known that by the first single that was actually released before the album came out, which was Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive.
Just bad title to start with.
Bad title, silly song, super goofy video that accompanied it.
I don't mind the song so much, but it's just hard to get past that title.
It's hard to get past the title, and that's the chorus too. And the video is, it's just a goofy video, which isn't surprising for them because, their other videos were goofy.
Yeah,
Down Under is like super silly. And that was endearing. And I think that kind of just followed that course that they were already on. But it's kind of funny to me that was the first single that is actually issued in 82. I mean, music-wise, it's okay, but I just think it's just a lot sillier than what you find on this album because I feel like it just has more of a maturity about it. And Overkill was the second single. Actually, Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive reached number 3. So did Overkill. And then the third single was It's a Mistake, also a great song.
Yes.
And that reached number 6 in the U.S.
That was probably my favorite song on the record then.
Really good song. Always liked that song. Then the first single was High Wire, which actually didn't chart at all, but it's a really cool song. I like it a lot.
Especially live.
And I didn't really watch any live stuff for
them.
They're
good. Yeah. No, they're good live. Yeah.
Overkill was always one of those songs that, I knew it, but I didn't own the album at the time. I wasn't like a big fan. What really brought it to my radar, and I think of probably a lot of people, was when the acoustic version was on Scrubs. So the TV show Scrubs. Colin Hay did like a little bit part and he sang the song, an acoustic version of the song.
Zach Braff is a super fan, so that was a nice break for Colin Hay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, that came at a time in his career, in Colin Hay's career, where he was just like playing these tiny little clubs that nobody cared at all. And, to like 5 people.
Going from being unquestionably the biggest band in the world for months.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that there's been a much steeper drop for a rock musician.
Yeah. So, I think that having this song come out in that form, being shown on TV, a lot of people were introduced to it, reintroduced to it, and he did put the full song out on an album called Man at Work, which was reworkings of some Men at Work songs. Some of it was just actual, like the regular versions of the songs, like Be Good Johnny, but there was that acoustic version of Overkill was on there. And I think it's one of those instances where it's a really great song as the way it was recorded, but then when you hear it done in a total stripped down fashion, it really proves what a great song it is. Well written, heartfelt, and just a really beautiful song. And so I think that's kind of what made it more on my radar. And then going back and listening to the whole album and really hearing, what they were doing at the time. I think, the song itself, I guess Colin Hayes says that he wrote it because he was reflecting his fear that he might be consumed by success. And especially because I guess, he had a tendency toward addiction and he was worried about the pitfalls of fame, the overkill, because like you said, they were so huge. To have massive success, especially because they had that kind of delayed success on their first album, because the album was out for like a year before it even broke in America.
Well, it took a while for the United States to come around. Yeah. And that's when you really make it is when you break here. And that was the last domino to fall for them. They'd already had success in much of the world before U.S. radio programmers and record executives finally open their eyes and ears. Yeah. It's just remarkable to me that it took so long.
But once they made it in America, they were huge. I think that's part of the appeal of the song too, is that it does have a very personal, outlook as a songwriter for Colin Hay.
It resonates now.
Yeah.
It's just kind of theme of anxiety. It just really resonates with the age we're in now. And it just makes this song a lot more relevant to listen to now than maybe some of their other bigger hits that were bigger at the time.
Right. And I think because a lot of their other hits kind of had either a little goofiness about them, a silliness about them, or they were just kind of catchy pop songs. And I also think that that's why this song was able to carry over into the 2000s and become popular again once that acoustic version came out. One of the things I really like about this song, and the whole album has this, the guitar solo is this really chimey.
So cool.
Just really pretty sound to it. And there's several songs on this album that have that
chorus effect on the guitars. Yeah.
Yes. It just kind of adds this other dimension to it that it lifts it up. It's really cool. I just think it's a great song. I love his vocals.
And they're kind of another dual lead guitar band. I always thought that Colin Hay was the rhythm guitarist and Ron Stryker was the lead, but that's not really the case. They both play leads. And I think Colin Hay actually plays more leads than Stryker does. The guitar work is very tasty on this album. The solos are very interesting, beautifully composed. And the solo in particular on Overkill is just sublime.
It's gorgeous.
The way it lifts, and then you get the delay effect and the other guitar coming in, the chiming sound as it goes back to, and then it lifts you up to that incredible vocal performance where Colin Hay gets to show off his remarkable full voice high register, and he's one of the greatest pop singers in history to sing in full voice in that high register. It's just incredible power.
I know, and I love how he waits until the last verse to bring his vocals up to that level. Yeah, like after that solo, it just like lifts you up, and then he's up there, I can't get to sleep, and it's like, oh yeah, now I'm really feeling it.
Yeah, he nails it. See, I'm doing falsetto there. I mean, that's hard to hit those notes in full voice. I mean, that is very impressive singing.
Yeah, I think it really showcases vocal chops and just songwriting in general. I just think it's a really, really cool song. And I'm glad that it got a new life to it, because I think that he also then started he'd always been touring, but I think after he put that Man at Work album out, where he was doing other acoustic versions of the Men at Work songs, that people started noticing it more, and like I think he started building more of a following again. And I mean, some of it's nostalgia because it's 80s coming back, but this song is timeless though.
Yeah.
This song does not sound 80s. I mean, maybe the original has a little more of an 80s sound to it, but it doesn't feel like it's a song. It could have come out anytime.
Well, it definitely has that 80s rhythm feel with that just basic, straight ahead, fast paced rhythm. And And the chorus guitars, that's kind of an 80s. And the production on this record is just beautiful. And I'm surprised Peter McIan wasn't used more often. The production and the sound quality, it's just a great sounding recording. It sounds great on a good system. But just all the little touches on this record production-wise, I think work wonderfully. Again, you mentioned there's a maturity that I don't think as eighth graders, ninth graders really appreciated the lyric on Overkill. I liked it okay at the time. It's a mistake that resonated with me more as a kid. Again, that's one of many songs. We're still in the very cold part of the Cold War at this point. 1983, that's when the Day After came out, right, on TV.
Yeah. Yes.
About the nuclear bomb going off and the aftermath, and it's presented very straight ahead, like watching a news show covering an event.
Yeah,
that was a little
very realistic,
scary.
A little too realistic. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a mistake. It's just kind of dealing with the nuclear dread of that era, like many new wave songs. But Overkill, it's harder to appreciate that lyric as a kid. Now, as an adult, it really resonates more. And it's just a beautiful song too.
Yep, I agree.
And I would say that is probably their best song. But, part of the reason they were able to cross over so well, I mean, No Sign of Yesterday, the final song on side one, that's a killer epic AOR track. And there's some great guitar work on there.
Oh, yeah. It's a long one.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of a dirgy song.
I really like the last song, No Restrictions. It sounds like The Police. And it's actually one of the few songs, too, that has flute. That was like their signature sound for Down Under.
Yep.
Yeah. And it does have a little flute solo in it. But it's a really cool song. It once again has that chimey guitar solo. I was like, oh, this sounds like something that would be on Synchronicity.
Yeah, most of the guitar work, you're getting that 80s chorus sound, but you're hearing more traditional hard rock guitar on No Sign of Yesterday, which I thought was a really, really cool track. But yeah, it's a great album all around. And both Business as Usual and Cargo are kind of a piece. I think they're both stalwarts in any record collection. Their third record, not so much. It was a very steep drop, and they lost band members, and I think Colin Hayes probably succumbing to his addictions, and basically they succumbed to the worst of 80s production when Two Hearts comes out, and it's a big old flop burger, and that's it for Men at Work. And within a couple of years, Colin Hay, this brilliant vocalist who had the most popular band in the world for about a 2-year period, is singing in clubs to like 5 people. It's incredible how quickly it all went away for Men at Work.
Which is why I'm glad that he had a bit of a resurgence, especially this particular song is what revived him. And still in a small, setting, small venues, but at least people were now appreciating his talents.
Well, and I hope people appreciate our playlist. We're adding Photograph by Def Leppard, Overkill by Men at Work from 1983, still working the early part of that year.
I hope people appreciate how much metal I listened to in the last 2 weeks.
Well, we did, the last time we focused on metal was 1980.
Yeah,
we kind of skipped
new
by
wave
it.
of British heavy metal,
right?
Yeah,
and that's the scene that Def Leppard came out of. Although they were never really a comfortable fit with a lot of those bands, they've kind of just been on their own for the most part.
Their earlier albums, their first 2 albums, are definitely more rock sounding and metal sounding, especially their first album. And one of the things we didn't mention about Def Leppard is that they're British. Their first album locally did well. They lost a lot of their hardcore fans at the very beginning because they were so focused on America. They had a song called Hello America on their first album. They really wanted to get to America. They wanted to tour America. And it turned off a lot of their initial following.
They had ambition, and that doesn't always sit well with people in these cloistered scenes. They clearly had ambition. They wanted to be as big as possible. That meant conquering America. So that was a focus for them early on. They toured relentlessly. They got on major tours. They toured with AC/DC.
They opened for Billy Squier and blew him off the stage.
They dumped their management for AC/DC's management. They wanted heavy-hitting management in America, and AC/DC had American management, and they made good business decisions. They were smart. They're down-to-earth, working-class guys from Northern England, Sheffield, but they were pretty savvy. And
Yeah.
Joe Elliott, I think, was kind of the brains behind the whole operation.
And they knew they wanted to get out of there, and they were going to do what it took to get there.
Yep. Credit to them. They did it in spades. But Photograph, probably going to be the only song that makes it on our playlist. I'm sorry. I know they're so popular. People love them, and people love glam metal. But for the two of us, we're going to have to cherry pick a few. There will be more, for sure. There will be more.
Yeah, and as we go along into the 80s, I'm really going to have to open my mind a lot to these popular things that I didn't care for at all.
We're going to try not to be music snobs, because we both are very serious about music and can be a little snobbish about certain types of music.
But I'm also very interested too.
Yes.
And I'm interested in learning the things I don't.
We will listen to everything with open ears. I didn't like a lot of 80s music when I was that age, but I've gone back and I've acquired a lot of it. And so part of the process is going to be going back and re-listening or listening for the first time to a lot of this stuff that was popular that I just didn't care for at the time, and see if I can hear it anew. And it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. It's a fun task.
It is.
Now, we're going to have to do a lot of work for our next episode, because we're going to talk about German New Wave, or Neue Deutsche Welle, as it's called in Germany. There were two big hits in America in 1983 that came out of this scene. They're both going to make our playlist. We'll talk about that, and we'll see if there's more to explore in this genre the next time we get together.
Oh, yeah. I know there is. I know there is. And I'm excited about this one.
All right. Until then, thank you for joining us on Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
Take care, everybody.